It's a Saturday afternoon in the fall, Corey. You know what that means, right?
Another Nole W?
Not a W.
A dominant W.
A butt kicking.
Butt whooping.
It's what they do. It's what Florida State does.
Molly-whopping.
Just think, it was just over 12, 13 months ago that you were pouring champagne over your head because they won a game.
Yep. 3 points over Syracuse on a last-second field goal. Yep.
Times have changed in the last 14 months or so. Florida State improves to 8-3 on the season with a 49-17 win over visiting Louisiana in a game that was not that close. It was 49-3 at one point.
Yes.
It could have been 70-3. Florida State takes out their starters, and just like is really the last 3 or 4 weeks now, Florida State's starting defense doesn't give up a touchdown. Just domination from start to finish.
Yeah, and as we've stressed for the last at least 2 weeks, I have ad nauseum. Some would say this isn't normal. That you don't. I know you can look and say, well, it was Louisiana. Yeah, man, big deal. Louisiana's as good as Vanderbilt. Right. Louisiana's as good as some ACC teams. That's a capable team. That's a proud defense, and you treat them like they're Charleston Southern, man. It's really kind of remarkable. Not kind of. It is to not just win these games. Anybody watching this, I think, right now, when you're 4-3. Well, we're getting rained on. Oh, nice. It's like the Wake game in 2018, buddy. A little different vibe around the program. But when you look at what they've done these last 4 games, I think after a 3-game losing streak, everybody would have signed up for, hey, you're going to win the next 4 games. You would have taken them by 1 point each. But man, you're winning by 35 points each, and they're not that close. This is nuts. Louisiana came here. I watched their coach's press conference before the game, and they were really thinking they had a chance, and they wanted to get bowl eligibility, and they were excited about being in this building, and they were run off the field. Off the field.
That excitement lasted about 3 minutes.
Yes.
Florida State gets the ball first, goes right down the field and scores. Jordan Travis was like using his legs today, which is a nice little twist. Right. Going into that Florida game next week. Trayshawn Ward breaks off a couple of touchdown runs. We haven't seen him do that since his injury. And then the defense, again, was dominant. I think it says a lot about the mindset. Even before this game, even though we saw them come focused against Syracuse last week, even though we've seen them do it before against Boston College earlier this year, this week I thought, well, maybe they'll have the slip up because you got Florida next week.
It would have made sense.
And no.
Are they a machine, Ira? Do they not succumb to human emotion?
It's 35-3 at halftime. Jordan Travis didn't play this. Again, if you just saw the final score, if you didn't see the game, I think some people had a hard time getting the game because it was on Bally Sports or whatever, not in every area. But it's 35-3 at halftime. Jordan Travis didn't even play the second half. Had the baseball cap to start the second half. Tate Rodemaker played 1 series. After that was A.J. Duffy.
You know it's a good sign when your backup quarterback has his baseball cap on too, because his day is done. And so I want people to understand, like, again, last week Florida State beat Syracuse 30 like a drum. And you can be like, yeah, with Syracuse. They were favored by 7 points. Right. They were up they won by 35. This game, I know they were a big favorite, but it was 24 points.
For the game,
and they're up 49-3 midway through the third quarter, late in the third quarter. So it's just Vegas hasn't caught up to this yet either. And it's going to be really interesting now. Not that we're not Jeff Cameron, this isn't a sports betting show, but to see what this spread is for the Florida game. Because Florida I know you guys are really sad, you're probably heartbroken. They lost a tough one up in Nashville. First time they've lost to Vanderbilt in Nashville since 1988, Ira.
In a minute.
What were you doing in 1988?
I was a freshman in college in 1988.
Yikes, you just dated yourself. I was 2 years old.
I was a young freshman in college. You were not 2 years old.
I was 2 years old, just been born. Couldn't walk yet. Couldn't walk, couldn't talk the last time Florida lost.
But that's a good segue, because the rest of the time we're talking here, we're going to be talking about Florida.
Yeah.
We're done talking about Louisiana. Look, man, Florida State now is 8-3. Florida's 6-5. It looked like Florida was kind of turning their season around the last few weeks, and then they laid an egg. Just what everybody does in the SEC when they play Vanderbilt. Kentucky lost to Vanderbilt last week. Florida goes up there today and loses for, like you said, the first time in 30-something
34 years, yeah.
And it should be, look, man, Florida State may be favored, like you said, they may be favored by 2 touchdowns.
Maybe more than that, who knows? It's hard to even gauge what you're supposed to do with this Florida State team right now, because you could make the argument, and again, I know that the competition matters, but they're playing just about as well as anyone in the country. And I know the people watching this, you say, okay, Florida State's going to play this team or that team, X, Y, Z. You wouldn't feel like you're going to get blown off the field by anyone the way you're playing. I mean, it is, and your starters don't even play, but your defensive starters, Fabian Lovett played, 19 snaps. Jared Verse played 25. I think A.J. Duffy played as much as Jordan Travis did. And that's a team that's has a chance to go to a bowl. But going to Florida, switching over to Florida, it's going to be really interesting, man. Like, there is a chance. Yeah, I think there's some Florida State fans watching this that think, man, Florida State's going to boat race Florida. And I don't know. I legitimately, at this point, I would not be stunned if they boat raced Florida. I mean, that's how well they're playing. Florida's coming off a tough loss. It's a short week where you got your major guys some real rest. And you have a team right now that Johnny Wilson played 3 plays, Micah Pittman played 2 or 3 plays, and you still put up 49 points in about 40 minutes.
I want to address that real quick, and then we'll move on. Johnny Wilson he started, played a few snaps, didn't play much. It didn't look like he was injured or anything like that. A lot of people have been wondering about that. We didn't ask Mike Norvell about it specifically.
He wouldn't have told us.
No, he wouldn't have.
Either way.
Because he wouldn't tell us about Micah Pittman.
Right.
But he did, but didn't look like there was anything wrong with him. Maybe he was a guy under the weather this week. We don't know. Maybe they just decided, you know what, this isn't going to be a game. Let's just sit him. But
if he could have played this week, which clearly he could have because he was on the sideline, then you know he'll be ready next week.
Right. And Micah Pittman did get shaken up in this game. He got hit low. Didn't look like anything terrible. He was able to walk off the field, but he did not come back in the game. So that's one injury concern. But overall, from a big picture standpoint, Mike Norvell talked about this in the post-game press conference about how you want to be playing your best football late in the year, but that's hard to do because a lot of times teams aren't healthy late in the year. This team has gotten pretty healthy, and the fact these last 4 weeks, they haven't had to play the second half.
Right.
So Fabian Lovett, Jared Verse, all those guys on defense, they're playing 25, 30 snaps. They should be really healthy going into this game.
And also your offensive line is playing, 40, 45 snaps, your starting offensive line. All of it. Jamie Robinson was incredible in this game in the first half. Didn't have to play a whole lot in the second half. Didn't need him. So that all helps. And, when you just take a step back and do like a 30,000-foot view of what this team has become, it's hard to even talk about it, or it's hard to talk about.
It's like when you see an old friend who's lost 250 pounds, and you're like, who? You're not even the same person.
I don't even want to look at you anymore. What's all that skin everywhere, man? You got to get that taken care of.
It doesn't make any sense that these are the same guys. I mean, they brought in some transfers, but 85 to 90% of this team is guys from last year.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different team.
Yeah, and it's a vibe around the program that's completely different. Like we've talked about ad nauseum again, it's one of the more likable teams. It's probably the most fun people have had watching Florida State since 2013. A lot of you guys, anyway, are the most enjoyable team because it does seem to kind of come out of nowhere. If you'd have told us in August they're going to be 8-3, we'd have been like, okay, cool. But you would have thought. You would have thought, okay, they won a lot of games late. Fitzy had a great year.
Because we thought there were a lot of coin toss games coming into this season.
There's been one coin toss game, and you blocked an extra point. That's about it as far as the wins I'm talking about. You won 8 games, 6 of them have been absolute blowouts. One was a 1-point game against a team that's number 6 in the country right now, or whatever they are. And the other one was a game where you won with your backup quarterback on the road against Louisville. This is a very, very, I don't know if I'm going to add the third berry, but it's a very, very good football team, and it's playing incredibly well right now. And again, as you project just towards Friday, sure, and then the bowl game after that, but then also just as we move forward, Ira, it's got so much momentum right now, you can feel this thing. But again, momentum is a fickle mistress. So I don't.
Did you just make that up?
I did. It's a great one. I think that's a saying. I think Einstein said it. But I think that you look at what he's done in the ceiling of this team, because it's so much higher than I thought it could possibly be. That now, okay, maybe he's even changing what we could foresee for this program as a whole.
I was going to go very, very merry since the time of year.
It is holiday season.
Looking at that Florida game a year ago, Florida State, I felt like was a better team than Florida State last year. Going into that game, I expected them to win. I think most of us expected them to win. They would have got bowl eligible. It didn't happen. They got baited into a little trash talk before the game and then lost their minds. There was a lot of penalties, sloppy play. Jordan Travis got banged up, missed a few series. Florida ends up winning that game. I think that's a factor this week. The vibe from the players after the game, other than Robert Scott, and please go watch Robert Scott's interview.
Right. If you don't do anything else after you're done with this, watch Robert Scott.
Funniest man in America without ever even trying.
Yeah.
But other than him, those other guys just seem very businesslike. Matter of fact, I think they want to pay back Florida State for what happened in last year's game, because that game really cost them a lot last season. Cost them a chance to play in a bowl game.
Well, and think about what if a loss on Friday night would do to how you feel about what's happened here. I mean, look, it doesn't erase 8 wins, but it puts a pretty bad damper on it. I mean, a legitimate damper to lose to a team that, like we said, you might be favored by 2 touchdowns in this game. They're coming off a loss at Vanderbilt, which none of them, I don't even know if Napier was alive when that happened, the last time that happened. So they're not feeling great about themselves. You're riding high. you're going to have I mean, I can't imagine what this place is going to be like. If you guys are going to come to one game this year, I have to imagine it's this game. This is going to be, I can't, it's going to feel like Notre Dame last year. It could be like Oklahoma in 11. I mean, it is going to be a crazy atmosphere for that game. Number one is Florida. We get it. But also the way this team plays, everybody's excited to watch them play.
Yeah, I thought this crowd might be a little bit better just because of the way they've played the last month. I thought people might want to be excited. But it's a tricky game because you're playing 2 games within 6 days.
On the Thanksgiving
week.
Yeah.
So that was going to be challenging. A lot of students obviously weren't here as well. But overall, I think you're right, man. The atmosphere Friday night should be incredible. And again, you have everything kind of going in your favor.
Right.
These last few weeks, you haven't had to play a full game with most of your starters. Florida just had to play another 4-quarter game on the road
that they lost.
And now they've got to come back home and then get ready on a short week to come here.
Well, and also they're the worst defense you've played through this whole stretch by far. They're the worst defense that you've faced. Now they have a quarterback and they can. I don't know what happened to them in the first 3 quarters today offensively, because they're usually pretty good offensively, but they weren't today when it mattered in the first 3 quarters. And then their defense is the worst you've faced since, I don't know, man. It might be the worst you've faced since all season almost. Boston College. I don't know. They're not good defensively. You have, I think, as good or better quarterback. You have a better defense. You have this crowd, which will be electric, and you're playing as well as anyone in the country. Go in big, man. Right, Ira?
The one caveat.
Okay, there's a caveat.
The one caveat is that they have not really played a good quarterback over the last month.
Correct.
And Anthony Richardson did not play well at Vanderbilt today, but he has it in him.
Yes.
He had the game against Tennessee. He's had some moments, and he's definitely athletic and can make plays. So that's the one thing that should keep these guys focused and not come into the game overconfident.
Well, and like you said, it's also Florida, and they wrecked the what would have been an awesome end of their season last year to come back from 0-4 to go to a bowl, and Florida wrecked it and told them all about it while they were doing it. So yes, Florida State should be very, very motivated to come repay the favor.
Well, stay tuned to warchant.com. We've got all the coverage you could ever ask for coming up over the next week leading to Thanksgiving.
6 days.
Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, Corey.
I don't celebrate until we're on the day.
You can't take it early?
No, I don't say Happy Thanksgiving unless it's actually Thanksgiving.
I take it back then.
Good.
For Corey Clark and Aslan Hajavandi, this is Ira Schofield signing off from Doak Campbell Stadium, where Florida State is 8-3.
8-3. Believe it?